this is Mr. Coates, and this is APES lecture number 32 on geothermal energy and biomass. This is a picture of a geothermal energy plant in Iceland. Iceland is the #1 country for geothermal, and the United States is #2. But Iceland, if you remember, sits right on top of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and so they have a lot of hot rock really close to the surface. And so they can produce steam very easily, and most of Iceland's energy actually comes from geothermal. So this is a geothermal plant where they produce their electricity. We're going to go into how that works here in a minute. The other thing we're talking about is biomass. Biomass is basically the use of living material, or once living material, to produce either ethanol or to produce electricity from burning. So first of all, let's look at the technology for geothermal. So geothermal, you can actually have a heat pump for geothermal, and this is usually for shallow ground energy, and I'll have a graphic that shows this a little bit better. Basically, you can drill down into the earth, and the earth not too far down has a constant temperature of about 74 degrees Fahrenheit. By using this energy from the earth, you could actually heat and cool your house during those winter and summer months respectively. The trouble is you just got to drill down, and you got to have a lot of wells to exchange the heat with the earth. Now, the other thing you can do is direct use. Now, this is only going to work where you have heat really close to the surface. So you can actually take water that's already heated and you can pipe it into the building and use it to heat spaces, or you can use it to heat water, other water that can be drinkable. And so this is called direct use if you take that water directly from the hot water of the earth. And then you can use it in power plants. Okay, and this is a geothermal power plant here where a liquid is pumped down into the hot rock here, and then the liquid then comes back up and turns a turbine, which then turns a generator, and that produces your power. And so there's a couple different ways. There's dry steam plants, there's flash steam plants, and then there's a binary cycle plant. So we're going to look at those and see how that works. If you look how deep this is right here, we're at 2 to 3 miles deep on this these pipes, so we've got to go pretty deep to get to that hot water. Now, obviously, if you're in an area where you have pretty hot rock pretty close to the surface, you don't need to go that far, but you do need to go down to where at least water will boil. All right, let's look at dry steam. Dry steam, basically, you take water is pumped down into an injection well, down into hot rock. Okay, and that turns to steam, and as it comes up, then the steam will turn the turbine, which turns the generator, produces the electricity. And this is the easiest way to do it. This is called dry steam, and there's no fossil fuels involved in the production of this power whatsoever. Now you can actually do flash steam as well. So this is for fluids that boil above 200 degrees Celsius. So what you want to do is you send this fluid, whatever it is, down there. It gets really hot, but it doesn't turn to a gas because it's under pressure. And so once you get it up here, then the pressure is released, and when you do that, then the fluid flashes to steam, or flashes to a gas, and then that gas can be then used to turn the turbine, which turns the generator, which produces electricity. Once again, you have a condenser again for that liquid then, and then it can be reused. And you can use this with water, but you can use it with other fluids as well. If you use it with other fluids, obviously those fluids have to be in a containment the entire time. If you use water, you can just drill down to where you get to porous hot rock, and you can just force the water into that porous hot rock, and you'll eventually get the hot water out this way. Now you can also do a home-based geothermal system, and some of these systems I've seen not in this area but in colder climates. And so before the building is actually built, or the home is actually built, what they do is that they dig a fairly deep hole and they put out some piping. And so they have a cold loop here, and eventually that will get heated up by the earth, and like I said, up to about 25 degrees Celsius. And then that goes back to the house and goes into a heat exchanger, and then the heat can be going through the house like a central air conditioning could be. And then in the summer, you just reverse it, so the hot water comes out of the house, the earth cools it once again down to 25 degrees Celsius, and you pump that back in and just reverse. So this is called a heat pump because it can go both ways. These can be very energy efficient, but you have to plan for them in advance, and also the maintenance cost could be high depending on what these pipes are filled with. A lot of times they're filled with glycol, which is not cheap. That prevents them from freezing if they are freeze, but also it transfers the energy much better. Glycol is the same thing as antifreeze. This could be a very easy way to heat and cool your home. All right, there are some trade-offs as well on this. Nothing is perfect. So the great thing about it is that once you build it, there's no or hardly any CO2 emissions. At a favorable site like in Iceland or around some of the United States areas out west, it can be very low cost. Very low land disturbance. You don't need a big area for one of these things. The problem is that there's not a whole lot of suitable sites to produce actual electricity directly from it. There's some local pollution if you actually if you drill down an area that might have some sulfur degas, there might be some carbon dioxide degas. They are very noisy, and then sometimes they might have that rotten egg smell, hydrogen sulfide. And then in some places they can be extremely costly, and if you don't have a easy to reach heat area. They're very efficient once you get them built. All right, so where can we do geothermal in the United States? Well, once again, Florida's left out. However, out west, this area out here is really great for geothermal. Some of this is as well. This is Yellowstone National Park's right in here, so there's a lot of hot rock in this area. Out west is where it can really get a lot of geothermal. That we have such a high water table that your piping would have to be made out of something that couldn't corrode after a while. The next type of energy we talk about is biomass. Biomass basically is when we use living material or material that was once living, like wood or rubbish. It could be crop residues, and it could even be landfill gas. Landfills produce methane, so it could be that way. Animal waste could be one. We'll see that. But basically you can do this. You can turn this into biogas, which is natural gas or methane. You can turn it into ethanol, which we actually burn in our cars right now. Or you could actually turn it into methanol. Now, we don't really use methanol too much as a fuel, but you could actually. So you could do ethanol, you could do a cleaner methanol. All right, the other thing we could do is burn waste. And we do a lot of that here in Hillsborough County in Florida. A lot of the waste that is collected in our trash cans on this curb here actually goes to Hillsborough County's waste to energy plant. It doesn't go to the landfill. And so a lot of the energy that we use here can come from the burning of our waste. The problem with that, once again, you get CO2 and SO2. Basically, you can get heat from direct burning from biomass, and this is what a lot of developing countries, we've talked about this before with fuel wood, so they use this for cooking or to heat their structures. However, in developed countries, we can go this route, and we can convert it to gaseous or liquid biofuels. Liquid biodiesel is another one. Ethanol, methanol, gasoline, and then you could do even wood gas, where you actually take wood and you turn it into methane. Now, ethanol is a different story. We do have quite a lot of ethanol in the United States, and most of it is put into our gasoline. If you ever go to the fuel pump, you'll see that on the fuel pump it says contains 10% or less of ethanol. So our fuel that we put in our cars does have some ethanol in it. You can even buy those flex fuel cars now that can run on 85% ethanol. And ethanol is a cleaner burning fuel than gasoline, but the problem is that here in the United States we produce all of our ethanol or most of it from corn, and that corn could be used to feed people instead rather than producing energy. It's not very efficient for us to farm corn to produce ethanol, and unfortunately in the United States most of our ethanol does come from corn. Can come from other things too. So grasses, for example, switchgrass is one of the major grasses that can be used, and it's actually way more efficient producing ethanol than corn is. And if we changed our ethanol production to switchgrass, we'd be doing a lot better here in this country. Sugarcane also. Sugarcane residue. We produce a lot of sugarcane here in Florida, and if we took that residue, we could actually turn it into ethanol a lot easier than corn. And Brazil is actually one of the leaders in using sugarcane for ethanol. They produce a lot of ethanol using sugarcane waste, and they do a good job with their ethanol production. In the United States, the problem is that our government pays extra money to those farmers who raise corn for ethanol, and so we're promoting this inefficiency once again. All right, some trade-offs once again: high CO2 emissions, not very much of an energy yield when it comes to corn. If we look at switchgrass, though, we get much more energy out of it, much more energy efficiency here. So it is partially renewable as long as we don't harvest our plants faster than they grow. No NOx, which is good, so no smog, no acid rain there. It can create problems with your engines though. I have a problem with my boat all the time because I use ethanol gas. I have to keep on adding gas additives to it because the ethanol is not good for it. Alright, so here's a movie on some of the methanol production here in Florida, and this is kind of interesting, so I'll let this play. I'll get out of here.
About the time we can say our you-know-what doesn't stink, our neighbors like us a whole lot more.
All right, really. A dairy farm is making everybody happier by recycling what they have the most of. Nothing much has changed about the way milk is made. You know, pretty much it's been the same recipe for centuries, but not the same price, of course. So to control cost, one giant dairy farm nestled between here and Gainesville is going green by tapping into something brown. Consumer reporter Chris Cabura takes us for a little trip to the farm.
The herd at Alliance Dairy
5,000 to 6,000 cows.
is constantly cranking out milk.
Nature's most perfect food.
To keep pace with our thirst, each cow eats 55 pounds of feed
grasses, the corn.
each day. So they're also cranking out something else. Call it manure, dung, droppings, excrement, poop. The one word you don't use here is waste.
Manure has a lot of value.
From the barn, it's just a few steps to a unique generator running at full speed.
It's new.
This machinery is making electricity for the farm, and then some. Its single fuel is a constant stream of cow chips.
Poop to power.
What the cows produce naturally flows nonstop through a brown river, down a stool waterfall, then into a giant patch of concrete.
We're sitting on a methane digester.
Engineer Del Botcher designed this 2 football field wide and 16-foot deep pool for feces.
It's basically full of manure.
Under the cover and over the course of almost a month, the cow's leavings heat to a perfect 101 degrees. That's when an invisible microbe army performs a high-energy magic trick.
It converts it into methane.
Methane gas. Trapped beneath the concrete cap, this invisible energy is piped into the generator. Fueled only by cow plop, it pumps out a full megawatt of electric. That's enough to light up 425 homes.
It's a lot of power.
Alliance cows are creating the energy needed to milk them. And farmer Jan Henderson
Be more environmentally friendly.
expects to cut the dairy's electric bill by $1 million a year.
We are powering ourselves.
When there's extra electric, the power generated here by cow poop is sold to the local utility to power homes like yours. The farmers impressed.
We're very proud of what we've done out here.
Through the screens,
The engineers energized.
I'm really excited.
The cows totally indifferent.
I think the cows are oblivious to it.
But
There's a potential the cows could get real excited about it.
Even after they've squeezed the power out of the poop and transformed it into something safe enough you can hold it in the palm of your hand, you still can't call this waste.
post-generator, these harmless and remarkably odorless leftovers
And this offsets further.
can now be added to potted plants or even used as bedding for their creators, the cows.
We are the ultimate recycler.
Scientific achievement aside,
You just can't realize how big this thing is.
there's one practical benefit to producing power by pooling cow poop in this gigantic bunker. Dung's most potent trait, its unmistakable smell, is contained.
About the time we can say our you-know-what doesn't stink, our neighbors like us a whole lot more.
Old-fashioned milk on one end, cutting-edge cow power on the backside, and fresh air in between.
It's hard to put a price on that.
Chris Camora, Fox 13 News.
All right, that methane digester is the first of its kind in the South, and it's working so well they are pondering adding another one right next to it. And Kelly, I have here in this bag some of that stuff, and they guarantee me that it has no smell, so I'm going to test it for you. This is a live smell, okay?
Okay.
It smells like a plastic bag.
Okay.
It doesn't look like a plastic bag inside. It looks like the stuff you...
All right, well, I hope you found that interesting and how they are producing methane gas for electricity from manure. If you have any questions about biogas or geothermal, please ask it in class.